So in terms of preparing for death, when you wake up in the morning, first thing, without moving, if you're just lying in bed, just relax into the out-breath and remain relaxed and spacious for, as you can manage, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. You might have a very busy life and be called forth, or if you have young children, they might come into the bedroom. If the young kids come in, you put an arm around them, take them into the bed, and just be quiet together. And then life goes on. So in this calm state, it's open. And from the openness, the formation of the day begins. So manifestation is within openness. The key thing is not to split stillness and movement, or openness and content. Because if you go from one to the other, now you've got a polarity, now you've got the duality, and then you're thinking, oh, I wish I could spend more time in bed, because I want a compensation for the need to arouse myself to deal with all the tasks of the day. Now you're already into adjusting and directing and editing. So relax in the out-breath, and you're just lying there. Sensation arises, sounds arise, and so on, arising and passing. And then you enter into the day. Now, how does that occur? How do you get out of bed? You let getting out of bed occur. You move, one leg goes over, your legs are dangling out of the bed, and you stand up. And then this happens, and then that happens. And you move your foot to get into your slippers, and then you get to the bathroom, and you have a pee, and you are in interaction. So yourself and the world are moving together. This is the most important thing, because if you start from the position, I have to do this, then your conceptualization is from the inside to the outside. The world is out there, I'm in here, and I've got to put the kettle on, and then I've got to do that. And so you're experiencing yourself mediated through the notion of a separate ego. You can perform exactly the same activities in a softer way by you walk towards the kettle, you lift it up to see if there's water, pour out yesterday's water, put in some fresh water. Just this sequence of... So as you lift the kettle, you feel the weight. So you have tendons, you have muscles, you're registering that, and then you go to the sink, you turn the tap. Depends on the kind of tap you have. So I'm turning the tap, mastery. I'm turning the tap according to the kind of tap I have, collaboration. Does that difference make sense? The world is showing you how to behave. If you've got boots, you might have a zip to pull up. If you've got shoes, you might have laces to tie. What your hands do, how the muscles in your arm move, is in relation to the shoe. So when we organize everything in terms of this monologic kind of, I am doing this, I have to do this. Subject is acting on object, but actually the shoe is calling you into a communication. The tea is calling you into a communication. So you're working with the tea. You're working with the water. Because the kind of tea bag that you buy, if you use ordinary tea bags, might depend on the kind of water. Some tea bags are especially suited to hard water. If you have hard water, if you have soft water, you might use something else. It's communication. It is collaboration. I am collaborating with the shape of the world. And what that does is it creates a sense of inclusion. And then you step out your front door into this world, and you're included already within it, rather than thinking, who are all these people? What are they doing? Why is that? What? Because these sort of thoughts separate you further and further from what's going on. But also, in the early stage, a very useful reflection is to think, this is the last day of my life. So I'm going to spend today saying goodbye. So I say, goodbye teacup. Now, you can't say goodbye to the teacup without looking at the teacup. You lift the teacup, goodbye teacup. Oh, I'm registering the teacup. So the thought, this is the last day of my life, is a support for being mindful. Goodbye shoes. Goodbye maybe partner or friend. Goodbye stairs. Goodbye. So I'm connecting and thinking, this may be the last time I see this. What am I seeing? This may be the last time I hold this. What am I holding? I'm here. This is here. Here I am. So now you've got the vitality of live presence in the world. Rather, the big danger for us is automatic pilot. That we're just going through the motions because we've done it so many times before and we don't need to think about it. Well, we don't need to think about it, but it does help if we're present with it. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. The fact that you can do it in your sleep doesn't mean you should go through the day asleep, but being present, being connected and aware. And really observing. Not observing out onto the object, but observing yourself in relation to the world. In the Dzogchen tradition, there are many different kinds of meditation. And if people have a lot of time, I'm happy to show some of these. But actually, the world will show you if you give yourself to the world. Because most of the different kinds of meditation, there are things that you do, making particular sounds or gestures. You make it for a while and then you stop and you see what is arising for me as a consequence of this. But you can do that through the day. So, for example, you can observe a tree. And you can let the tree, as it were, come to you, or you can go out and tell the tree what it is, or you can receive the tree. And if you receive the tree, it touches you, it impacts you. Me and tree, tree and me, what? How? Then me and car, car and me. How? How is this? Something has happened. If you get into a car, look at how many things happen to bend your body, to tilt your head, to get into the seat, to turn, to get the safety belt, to pull it across your chest. There are a lot of movements going on there. You can be present with these movements. How do I feel doing this? I was standing in the street. First I was walking, then I'm standing in front of the car, I'm opening the door, I'm doing this. It's a whole sequence of movements, each one of which is bringing me into a different relationship with the world. How is this? Staying present with the process of the unfolding of experience moment by moment is again and again a way of massaging softness into the rigidity of the perception of self-existing entities. Because you can say, I'm getting into the car. There's me and the car, and now I'm in the car. And the car's a car. But how is this carness? Different cars have different kinds of seating. We're all different heights, so sometimes the car's not quite easy for somebody to see in through the windscreen and so on. This is you. This is your life. I am coming into manifestation. I am becoming this and then this and then this in dialogue or interplay or interrelation with what's going on. Now the meta commentary, the sort of overarching commentary on the top is, I'm just sitting in the car, but better go. There's nothing to consider because I've done it before. That's what we were looking at just before the break in terms of mental dullness or stupidity. Because you're not registering the actuality of the situation. Here I am. What is this? Sensation in my buttocks, sensation in my legs, because I can't extend my legs. I've got them at a particular angle. My knees are giving messages. A lot is arising. This is life. I am in embodied life with my senses. So hopefully you can see the relationship of this to the sitting practice that we do through our open senses. Experience is arising ceaselessly, and we are present. Presence, if we really relax into it, doesn't change, and experience is always changing. Presence is hidden by conceptualization, and the ceaseless flow of experience is hidden by conceptualization. Conceptualization is like a wall, an opaque wall that hides in both directions. You don't see the open ground of presence, and you don't see the particularities of what's arising in the moment. So anything can remind you, oh, it's just this, it's just this. Just this. Whatever it is, just this. You have to go into a hospital, go through the swing doors, you can be aware of maybe some anxiety or fear, or there's a particular smell in the air. You look at the people, you see the nurses are quite happy, they're all chatting because they're not sick, and you see the patients, they're all looking a bit woo-hoo-hoo. Oh, then you have, oh, this is what is arising. Having a thought about it doesn't really do anything. I think, oh, this is this, this is this. Because when we move into death, the capacity to maintain the overarching narrative goes down. If you sat with people who are dying, they're not giving an overview about their existence. That vanishes, and they're just there. There's just breath. The eyes looking up. Then the breath starts to change, going into this chain breathing. I'm vanishing. That is to say, they can't hold themselves together through a conceptualizing of identity or the performance of a narrative account of what's going on. These two capacities are dissolving. And it may be that a lot of the time in our lives we don't actually need these capacities. These abilities actually are an obscuration, but in our dualistic world they appear like a clarification. So we could see the difference. Now actually, if you're just sitting in the car and you're in touch with what's happening in your body, to most people looking from the outside say, hey, what's happening? What are you doing? Why aren't you start the engine, let's go. What are you doing? You're not doing anything. You're receiving what is. This is the happening. I think, oh, moment by moment, this incredible richness of life is happening with me as part of it. I'm on the inside. This is the integration of subject and object. And you can drive the car exactly in that mood. It'll make you a careful driver because you're very attentive to everything that's going on. You're not spacing off in thoughts. You're just here. And here is dynamic and interactive, so that the presence, unchanging, is not interfering with the movement of subject and object as you overtake a car and then you park. Subject and object are movements of energy within the mirror of the mind. The clarity of awareness is not the subject, but the more you allow yourself to be present as the subject, you start to relax into open awareness. Does that make sense? So that's what you can continue all day long, whatever you're doing. And when you get distracted and you find yourself kind of alienated from presence and you're just thinking about things or making lists, or you're sitting in a meeting and you find yourself doodling because you're bored with what people are saying. Oh, this is suicide. I am killing myself while I'm alive. I'm not here. But it's boring being here. Now, why is it boring? Boring is our inability to inhabit the situation. Because we don't like it, or we don't like what the other person's saying, or I've had enough of it. So we are installing a limit that causes us to not give our full attention to what's there. But what is there? What is there is not our concept about what is there. What is there is what is showing itself. So we can pay attention to the postures and gestures of people in the meeting. In the meeting, we can listen to somebody's voice, even if they're incredibly boring and tedious, and you've heard it before and you don't want to hear it again. You're not hearing, you're interpreting. What do we hear? We hear sound. We interpret sound as information. If that person was speaking in, I don't know, Portuguese, we probably wouldn't understand what they were saying. But they speak in English, we know English, so English is a kind of catching capacity. This sound which comes out can now be comprehended, first of all apprehended and then comprehended by me, because I understand English, they're speaking in English, and we can get a fit. But what did I hear before I interpreted? Sound. So in the Tantric tradition it says, after you do the dissolving practice and you're entering into identification with the deity, all sound is the mantra, the sound of mantra, the sound of sound and emptiness. Mantra means mind protector. It means it's a sound which has an energetic presence, but the semantic content is not so important. So if you stay just with sound, you can listen to any old garbage. Listen to politicians. Why do you get upset hearing these particular politicians? Because of the working of your own mind. What they say is sound. Sound and fury signifying something. But we are Buddhists. So what we hear is sound and fury signifying nothing. We are punished by something and we are liberated by nothing. It's just sound. It's just sound. Sound is movement of energy. It's vibration. We remember that from school. The vibration in the air comes in your ear and sets off this vibration. That's all it is. We go into the interpretation of that. So that's our positioning. So I don't need to go into the interpretation. Of course, our interpretations have become habitual to us since we first came into language when we were 2 and 3 years of age and we started to swim in this ocean of conceptualization. It's become second nature to us to think that we hear what people are saying. But when somebody speaks, as I'm speaking just now, I'm sending out vibrations which can only be picked up by you if you have English language receptors. If you don't have that, you won't be able to pick it up. So we have receptors that operate in terms of the pitch of the sound, as we know with dog whistles, but in terms of the sound being able to be interpreted. It is a mental activity. So it's very, very useful, especially if you're traveling in the train and some bugger's on their mobile phone. It's very useful just to not enter into a reaction to it, not sort of blank off to try to avoid it, but just to hear, oh, this is sound. Because what's annoying is that you can sort of hear what they're saying. So either you want to say, shut up, or could you speak louder? Because this is quite interesting. But it's just sound. Just sound. So when we see things, people's behavior, throwing rubbish on the street and so on, it's just patterns of color. But they shouldn't do that. But they're not thinking that. I'm thinking that. So who is being disturbed? Me. How could they do that? They just did it. So there's a lot of mental activity which gets us aroused as if we should do something and something should be done, but we don't do it because we don't really have social permission anymore. And all that's happening is we're distressing ourselves. And we're caught up in a flow of concepts and not registering the immediacy of the light shining on the puddle. If we were 3 years of age and we had little red rubber boots on, that puddle would be very, very important. We would need to jump up and down in it until all the water was splashed out of it. But we look at the puddle and we don't register it. So that indicates again and again that meaning in the world is projective. It's associative. It's not inherent and it's not intrinsic. So this is the basic freedom. I don't have to align myself in identification with the current projection which is arising in my mind. If there is something to be done, if it is a workable situation, of course we mobilize ourselves and we say something or we do something, but a lot of the time we start to heat up or mobilize inside, but because we can't express it, we retroflect it, we turn it back into ourselves, and it sets the wheels running. Does that seem to link with your experience? And then all you have is agitation and disturbance, and more preoccupation, and more sensitivity to reactivity about the behavior of others. So again and again, stay with the senses as they are. Just what is being received. Not what, actually, what isn't the right thing to say. Something is there. The what comes when you come into some identification or naming or value judgment of it. But in fact, it's not even a somethingness. There's an appearance or a communication or a contact. And you're in connectivity because it's arrived. And then you like, don't like, want more of, want less of, and so on. But it's actually arrived. Sound comes to us, and then we think, well, why are they saying that? Well, it's already in. So if you stay just with the freshness of the arrival, maybe there's nothing much to make sense of it. Because the judgment is the allocation of the meaning, and this is what consciousness does. Remember, the meaning of consciousness in the Tibetan language, nampa shepa, is knowing shapes. It's formulation, it's organization, making sense of things. But prior to that, there's just knowing. The mirror just receives everything. So you will smell, you will taste, you will hear, but less obligation to do something with it, less reactivity. And so there's more space. And when there's a appropriateness of responding, a response will arise. But basically, more calm, more clear. Okay, we have a little time for some more questions, if there are, before we do some final meditation. Yeah?
Could you do mindfulness of telly or watching a film?
Okay. Well, generally, mindfulness is both connective and disconnective. It's connective in that you're giving your attention to something, but as it were, you're giving your attention to the surface of the thing. A film's only going to work for you if you suspend disbelief, if you give yourself to it. So a film that doesn't hold your attention becomes an annoying or a boring film. But if you suspend disbelief and give yourself into it, the subject that gets involved with the play of the movie has less mindfulness. So mindfulness in a dualistic sense from a subject who is mindful about an object will not be maintained if you're watching the movie. However, the awareness of the ground or rigpa is also a mindfulness. In the Tibetan language they use the same term dramba, which means sati in Pali, or mindfulness, but here it means to recollect. That is to say, to collect yourself back into the awareness of the ground, not to go out into identification with whatever's emerging. So, you do your bit of practice, you press a button, movie comes on. Just as when we're sitting here, we do the practice and you're aware there's tension in the muscle in your legs, you feel your back in the back of the chair, you have thoughts, you have feelings, you see people moving in the room, there's shifts of color, someone's phone starts to ring. Subject and object are arising together within the mirror of awareness. But if you fuse into identification as the subject, I like this film, and in that identification you stay in it, you forget the open ground. The open ground is always there because that is the ground. You don't have anything without the ground or the source or the base. But you can deny it. It's just this. I'm just here with this. But I'm just here as a thought. So my immersion in the movie is a giving myself into fusion. Now the practice says, don't fuse and don't step apart. Don't merge into things, don't grasp at things, and don't reject them or abandon them, but stay present. So if you stay present, you really, it's actually quite a good thing to do. You really can see, I am not the subject and I am the subject. So the expressive quality of me as me coming into the world is me. I like this movie. I don't like every movie. Sia Lama liked avocados and wonton soup. Namkai Norbu likes Brunello di Montalcino. Very nice wine. So everybody likes something. Enlightened people like things as well as other people. I shouldn't think the Karmapa would like haggis, for example, or black pudding. So there is a particularization to our energy as it manifests in the world. So I am somebody who likes this. This is a thought, an energetic formation arising within the field of awareness. It's not either or. It's not that you leave spaciousness and enter into the world of duality. Everything comes from the same ground. So, this relates to what we looked at yesterday. There are these three aspects to our mind or awareness. The first aspect is the openness or the emptiness. When you look for the mind, you don't find anything. There is no substance or essence or any definable characteristic. But it's not nothing at all because here, presence. And with this presence you have clarity. And the clarity is the revealing of everything all at once. And within this field of clarity, there is movement. Everyone in this room is moving in one way or another. You can scratch your ear or adjust your back or whatever it is. We're all moving within the field that we are part of. And the field that we are part of is the clarity or the display of emptiness, which is the ground. So as I move in relation to the movie, I'm in the movie. It's a good movie. Pity the popcorn's finished, but anyway, we'll keep going. So I'm in the movie. And presences can be here. So I'm open, I'm in the room, the television's on, and I'm in the movie. These three things are inseparable, except 1 and 2 vanish, and I'm just in the movie. Why? Because of forgetfulness or ignoring. I ignore where I am. I give myself into this situation. Where am I? I'm watching the telly. You're in the room. Where's the room? It's in the house. Where's the house? In the street. Where's the street? In the town. Where's the town? It's always here. And where is this? It's all in space. So in space there is the clarity of the infinity of whatever's arising, within which there are the micro gestures of this moment. And our work is always to bring ourselves into, relaxing into the integrity of these three. We're not integrating them. We are ceasing to disintegrate them. From the very beginning, these three modes have been inseparable. But because we don't attend to space, because of the fixation that we have on somethingness, that creates a disintegration. Now, this disintegration arises in the manner of a dream or like a mirage. It appears to be the case, but it's not really the case, because you're always somewhere. The decontextualizing of experience that comes with people talking on their mobile phones on the train. They get into the conversation, they forget they're on a train. This is a public space, it's not a private space. But you're making the public private by denying the existence of other people. It's an annihilatory gesture. In fact, it's a gesture of hatred and contempt. But it's commonplace now, because hatred for people is pervasive. We're not like the French that go marching in the street and the farmers come and dump their cow dung in the Champs-Élysées. We just hate each other in a quiet, nasty way. Unpleasant. Vive la France. So we abandon ourselves because we don't recognize that as me. So this is the problem in the meditation. You sit to meditate, a thought arises, you think, oh, my little friend, hey, let's hang out together. Because you know what to do with a thought. And then the mind's a bit more spacious. What next? Anything happening? And then, of course, something happens. The subject and object, which are born together, which belong together, which are actually non-dual, when they come apart, it's like a missing half, like the story that Ovid tells in the Metamorphosis, that at one time human beings were both male and female. But then they're punished by the gods and they get split in half, so people go looking for their missing half. They're seeking that which will complete them. The subject seeks an object to complete it, but you never find an object that actually completes you. So there's a hungry looking for something. Somethingness is very exciting. Nothing, openness, is not exciting for the ego. So if you start from the point of view of the ego, it's more difficult, which is why if I come here to Macclesfield, I always say the same thing, I always go for the same territory, because it's about getting the feeling of what this ground might be. That it's like spacious, like the sky. And that we start to see, oh, my thoughts and feelings and bodily sensations and hopes, they're arising and passing in a space in which I have the lucidity to experience what is going on. I am the space of experience. And when I look for the space, I can't find it, but it's here because there's always experience. And at this moment, this is the experience. So that's the integration. So you can bring that into watching the movies. But if you get caught up into over-fixation onto the subject and end up making a narrative of interpretation about the movie or judging it, you lose yourself. You lose the situation. You lose the ground of being. But without the ground of being, you wouldn't be there. So that's why it's stupid. Because you lead yourself astray.
Can I ask about that? Because I've just recently seen a movie which is really very beautiful. So are you saying, I mean, when I was watching it, I was there, I was kind of totally absorbed, and it touched me in a way that I'm not often touched in life. So are you saying that that is problematic in a way because by fusing or by entering the film in some way, I've lost the sort of ground? Because for me it was such a beautiful, it gave rise to a lot of beautiful feelings and tenderness and a part of me that isn't normally expressed. So in that sense I saw it was very positive and it's really affected me since then. But it's not that I thought that's me and I'm not me anymore. It's like what it did is that it resonated with stuff. It expressed something in me that I don't normally express. And maybe all people don't normally express that. So for me it was a very rich thing. So I think if I just sat there and trying to keep this tripod sort of idea, I would have, the joy of it was really immersive.
No, I absolutely agree with you.
Humanity.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, you can't keep these three factors in play by conscious intention. They are already in play. We can relax and become aware of it, but it's not something to be done. Now, the movie that touches you and moves you deeply opens up, as you very sweetly indicated, it opens up access for you to parts of yourself that might be dormant for a while. So it connects you with more of your potential. And that's a wonderful thing. Now that potential is arising from the ground. So if you're working with the level of the potential, that's a fantastic experience. The next thing would then be to see that the potential is the radiance or the quality of the ground. So it's not a bad or a wrong thing to do, but in order to open ourselves to the depth and richness of an aesthetic experience, maybe looking at a painting or a good movie or something like that, we're on a kind of bandwidth of our attention. It's deeper and more intense than our usual, often very surface interactions. But it's not the full depth of the openness of the mind, but it's a very good way of doing a bit of spring cleaning, because after that you think, oh, you're a bit more present. And then you can work with that to have more depth and clarity.
And you think the way of working with that is a meditative one, or one where you do it with the arts, which also feed that? Maybe people talk about soul, don't they? So we're not talking about a soul here, but something to feed that aspect of your of the ground.
Absolutely. I mean, as we know, Tibetan monasteries had a lot of beautiful images in them, and a lot of attention to colors. So they're working to create an aesthetic field which is rich and evocative and kind of reassuring about the beauty of what we're doing. So it's not an either or.
I suppose I was just struck by the contrast between that sort of film and what it was pointing to and what it aroused in me, and every day the world I'm living in, what's around it, was such a huge contrast and kind of, not grief, maybe that's the wrong word, but horror. Oh my God. You know, you see a glimpse of what's possible, not only in I mean, it's a romantic film, but in yourself, but it also the lack of opportunity to be like that. I'm not saying we may never do more work, we ignore that, but I can't do it on that. It's like, it has to be with others and, people, you know, it has to be a community thing. So I suppose that struck me as well, but I don't want to think that I can't watch film and I can completely be transported somewhere else. Very beautiful. Not anywhere horrible.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think being transported is a particular experience because I'm me and I'm stuck in my ordinary sense of self. And then I have that kind of experience and I am otherwise than me, but I'm still here. So my usual, whatever it is, anxious or depressed or a bit confused or perturbed way of being is now one possibility of me. But due to this experience, another possibility of me comes up. And the more I open myself to the world, I see many. I am multiple, I am legion, because this is the expression of the rich potential of our possibility. None of these is the true me, but the different energetic qualities bring a vitality which can then make me more able to relate to other people. So being enlivened allows me to bring more of my liveliness into the world. And then that's a kind of positive move. But the ground is the field within which this movement is occurring.
So it's okay to look for things that evoke that in me.
Fantastic, yeah.
That's not an aversion, it's a desire, but it's a good desire because it actually arouses something very wonderful rather than clinging, craving.
Absolutely. And the beauty of nature is a great support. You know, that you know, you can go out walking in the hills and sit by a little stream and you hear the water babbling down and you see it rippling over the rocks and the moss moving a little bit. The mind becomes sort of washed out because there's nothing to do with this. You're just there with it. And it's these moments of simplicity that allow a little bit more of the unchanging clarity of the world to show itself to us. Because that's the thing, that ignorance and confusion covers the world or disintegrates the world, but the world itself is beautiful, deep, shining, contactful. And we become alienated from that because we choose a very narrow swathe of life and we over-privilege certain habit formations, and then it's just more of the same and more of the same, and then of course our energy starts to go down. So opening to these different situations is very helpful. Okay, let's do a final sitting before we end. So this style of practice that we've been doing is described as unelaborated. There are many different kinds of practice. You can have practice with lots of rituals and mudras and recitations and so on, in which you have a big shrine with many offerings and tormas and so on. These can be extremely elaborated. But in this unelaborated practice, you have everything, because when you open into the mind, this is the primary refuge. To take refuge in your own mind as it truly is, in the ground, this is the great refuge. And by doing the practice, you're actually enacting the refuge. And there is no limit to the mind. Everything is within it. It means all sentient beings in all the different realms are within this spaciousness of the mind, the Dharma Dhatu. So the Bodhisattva intent, which is to remain connected with all beings and to bring them into the state of awakening, is manifested in being connected with all beings while staying in the state of openness. And then at the end, we might dedicate the merit for the sake of all beings, but since all beings are already in our connection, whatever we gain is already flowing with them. So when we leave this room, we go out, go on different journeys, meet different people, meet people who haven't been here, but they're not other than us. They are arising in the field of experience, and they have the same status of us as we do, which is these are moments of experience. Each experience has its own patterns, and these patterns can be linked to a wide range of potential or a very narrow range of potential, but they are the manifesting of the potential of the empty ground. So instead of labeling people and judging them and evaluating them and putting them in boxes, we can just stay relaxed and open with the energetic formations that we meet. Some people are easy to talk to for us, some people are not so easy to talk to for us. We don't need to come to any general conclusion, but we work with the possibilities of connectivity. And that's to integrate our being in the world with the ground of being, so that the intention of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times are fulfilled. And now our brief time together comes to an end. We're fortunate that we've had our filming and our recording, and that will be made available. We're very fortunate that we've had many people helping with the organization, because this is a collaborated experience. People do what they can in various ways to allow events to arise. This is all our life is the movement or the direction of energy in particular patterns. And these patterns can be vitality and connectivity and fulfillment, or they can be contrarian. They can be moving against towards conflict and differentiation and dullness and oblivion. So we are very fortunate when we meet together. There's a lot of good-hearted feeling, a lot of supportiveness. So this is a great pleasure for me. I'm very happy to be here. We may meet again, we never know, but I wish you a good journey.